Well, hello. Thank you for joining me, Jennifer. How are
Oh,
you?
doing well, doing well. Thanks so much for having me back on with you.
I'm glad to have you come back, and welcome everyone to a laugh and learn about human design, and we are now into authorities part 2.
It's just building.
It is completely building. There is a playlist for human design as well as for laugh and learn so that you can get caught up if you'd like. These are these are shows that require a little bit of slow intake because it's a lot of exciting information. It's new. Uh, I imagine that you just didn't fall asleep on the book and then wake up knowing everything, right?
Well, that would be so nice.
It totally would. It totally would. It totally would. So
Mhm.
the playlists are there. Please welcome Jennifer from My Holistic Self or Holistic Self Counseling.
Mhm.
Links are below. She has the link is also below for you to, if you would like to get a chart done for your human design, you can do that through her.
Mhm.
It does take a little bit of time because she creates a lovely little packet for you. So, and everything that we are doing is for entertainment purposes only. Do not make decisions based upon what we say. Seek professional assistance. Really. Please do all of the YouTube things and like, share, and subscribe because it's free.
Mhm.
So, and did I say I'm Tarot Stash? I'm Tarot.
Perfect.
There you go. I'm Tarot Stash. So, um, let's say hi to some of the best chatters who are here because we
Yes.
do have a few of them who are watching. And
Mhm.
best chatters includes Heather Caldwell. Hello, good to see you.
Mhm.
Hypnicity, great to have you here. Minerva, Minnie is here. Hello. And Laura Bondurant said, me too, for something I'm still don't understand at all, but I'm here for it.
Amazing.
I love it. I love it. Kaylee Fogo Pogo is here. Do you know Kaylee?
Yeah.
Have you ever met Kaylee?
Yeah. Yeah. You guys did Kaylee hosted a little question and answer series with you.
It was lovely. It was
Mhm.
lovely. Speaking of which, Madame Maru's House of Cards is going to be the one asking Jamie and I questions tomorrow.
Oh,
So
cool.
you get to hear her voice. So it's great. And Kaylee has got my pens and puns ready.
Amazing. Can't ask for anything more.
No, not at all. Not at all. So, and I, yeah, we never get to see each other. I told you.
Mhm.
Never. Never. What are you about like a 15-minute drive at most? So, but everyone, thank you very much for being here. And Madame Maru is doing the amazing thing of putting
Oh,
in
thank you. Thank you.
your YouTube channel link just so that everybody can. Oh, and an hour, but yeah, it's an hour, Gerald. But still, all right.
Not so bad.
No, not so bad at all. Totally worth it, though, right? I would imagine.
Mhm.
No pressure, Kaylee. I'm not. It's like you don't have to tell her that she's awesome because we already know she's awesome.
Yeah.
So Beth is here. Aspasia Rising. Good to see you. So
Authorities.
human design authorities. This is part
Mhm.
2.
Yeah.
Oh, I do actually have this little thing here that says, where is it? Authorities. One of the tools for living and making decisions.
Mhm.
We have 2 types of authorities. We have an inner or personal authority, and that is the source of inner guidance for making decisions as oneself. I love that it's our own personal GPS.
Yes.
And the outer authority, the proper realm of the mind.
Yes.
Like how it's putting the mind in its place, saying,
And it needs to be put in its place on a
yes,
regular basis.
yes. That will be a theme, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Liberated from decision making and able to use its gifts in service to others.
Yeah. It's a
So,
beautiful thing when we really dive into all of this, because we begin to understand that the mind is not meant to guide us. It is
mhm.
meant to use what we gain as guidance to bring to the world.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, and Kaylee does say she gives the best hugs.
Aw.
There you go. You heard it here first. So, authorities, this is again part of the human design. This is a book that I have, and you don't have to have it. Um, because it's an expensive book, and know your limits, purchase responsibly, and blah, blah, blah.
Right. But
So,
if you want to really dive in and get the basics and really, and I say the basics, but it's full of so much information
it really is.
about human design. Like, there's a reason why it's called the definitive book, right? Like, it really gets into a lot of what we've already talked about. So it doesn't go into some of the deeper kind of aspects of it, but it gives you a beautiful overview in a lot of detail of so much of what we've already talked about. So the different aura types, the centers,
hmm
the authorities, and then even we'll get into all of the gates and
Yes,
all the circuitry and everything that's a part of human
absolutely.
design.
So, the last time we talked about the solar plexus or the emotional
Mhm.
authority.
Yes.
And this time, what are we talking about?
Well, we're going to move on to the sacral, I think, from here. So when we talk about authorities,
And the
um,
sacral is right here.
you got it.
We finished this one, or we didn't really finish
We
it.
didn't
We
really,
touched
you don't
base.
ever finish it.
Yeah, and then so we're there. If you're looking at your chart.
So what I have, and I think I showed you guys this last time, is kind of a breakdown of what the authorities are going to look like and what we're going to go through, right? And so when we
Mhm.
talk about hierarchy of authorities, there, if the solar plexus is defined, it takes precedent. It is your authority. And we move from there, right? If
Yes.
you don't have a solar plexus defined, but you have a sacral defined, that becomes your authority. If
hmm
you don't have these, but you have a spleen, that is your authority, and
Yes.
so on and so forth down the line.
hmm
Okay. So we're just going to keep on kind of going and working our way through until we get through all of them.
Yes. Okay.
All right. So, I mean, the sacral one is pretty straightforward because it is just the sacral. It's not like some of the other ones where there's connections to other centers and all of that.
hmm
And as we talked about with the solar plexus authority, that's just under 50% of the population, right? 47, give or take,
hmm
percent has a defined solar plexus, and that is their authority. When we move into the sacral, we're not dropping down that much, right? We're at 35% of the population, give or take,
hmm
has a defined um, sacral. And
Yes.
so more than that, have a defined sacral as their authority, right? So
hmm
these are people who do not have a defined solar plexus, have a defined sacral.
hmm
All right. So let's see. The solar plexus and the sacral are going to be authorities for the solar plexus is authorities for most types except for reflectors. But the sacral is going to only be an authority for generators and manifesting generators.
hmm
Okay, but remember, that's 70% of the population.
Yes.
Okay. So when we look at what does the sacral energy mean, like how does it show up? What does it look like? We're looking at this idea of gut reaction.
Yes.
Okay.
hmm
So where this solar plexus is very much emotional and riding the emotional waves and allowing yourself to process that, the sacral is in this moment when you ask me something and I'm responding to it. Response is huge. Remember, generator and manifesting generator here.
hmm
Am I getting that? Oh yeah, hell yeah, I want to. Or am I
hmm
getting it? no way, not happening response.
Back away from that idea. No, 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 no. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And it's the immediate response, which is really interesting. And we've talked about this, with solar plexus, and we're going to talk about it with so many others, is the way that the mind gets involved.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we have this immediate gut response to something, and the mind goes, yeah, but ...
Yes. Yes.
Right. And so it's really about allowing yourself to get connected and hear that initial response.
Yes. Before
Okay.
the mind gets in there and messes things up.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. So Laura asked about how do you know if it's defined. So if you
thank you.
have your body graph, you would know at that point. So yeah, thank you, Gerald.
You're welcome.
So here you can see Gerald's square in the middle there that has the 9 at the top, and the square down below. Sorry, down below, down square. There you go. Sorry, I'm trying to point to your screen, which is just not going to work.
Yes.
Sorry, it's the 5 there, and then the 14 and the 29. You can see them across the top, and the 9 is down at the bottom there with the 3 and the 42. That's the square that we're talking about. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If it's like Gerald's, then it is undefined. All right. It means that there's no channels connected to it, so there isn't definition in it.
Mm-hmm.
If, on the other hand, see, I'm also not defined. But if there, let's say that Gerald's 34 there was connected to the 10, then both that G center, which is the yellow diamond, and his sacral, which is that red square, would be colored in, and that colored in is definition. So as you can see, his throat, which is just above that G center there, is defined, as is his ajna and his head. So when we look at definition and you want to know, am I defined or undefined, or am I open? That's what we're looking at. And so I think we talk a bit more about what all of that is in maybe the first one.
I think so.
We did. But for today's sake, if you have this this middle red square here colored in, you are defined. If you do not have it colored in, you are undefined.
Yes.
So then the question is, if you have the triangle on the side with the black planet list as opposed to the red one, because I'm still pointing, even though
I understand. You're doing great. You're doing great.
If that is colored in, that means that is defined. That's the solar plexus, and that takes precedent. Okay. Yes. So no matter what else is going on in your chart, if that is defined, that's your authority. If that is undefined, but you have that red square colored in, that is your authority. Okay. So I hope that answers that question.
Thank you, Laura.
As far as where to get your charts, I know Gerald has put in the links and all. You can go to my website. You can go to Genetic Matrix. There's a link on there, or you can go right to it. You can go to my body graph. There's a whole bunch of them out there that you can use to get your chart instantly.
Yes. Yes. Very much. Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's go back to sacral. Get my head in there. All right. So because it's a generator authority, it's all about responding, right? Because the strategy for a generator and a manifesting generator is to respond. So what happens is that response can be to anything. Anything in your environment. You can hear a song come on and your response is, I want to dance, or your response is, I hate this song, right? You're going to get that or kind of feeling around it. And so the idea is to really hone in on that, to really kind of notice in the moment if you're getting a yes or a no. All right. If you're getting a not really sure, that's wait.
That's a wait, and wait and give yourself some time. Okay. And by the way, Beth says, I always need more coffee in these lives with Jennifer.
Okay. I hope that's okay.
Good thing we're having it in the afternoon and not in the evening, not at like 10 o'clock at night. So
There you go. There you go. And the beautiful thing about it is that they're recorded. So you can always go back
that's true.
and
That
check
is
it out again.
very, very true. Yes.
Right. So, you might go, oh, what is this, and going on? Okay,
Mhm.
I'm just going to sit with that for a while, and then I'll go back and listen to the rest of it later.
Exactly.
Right. And that's the beauty of, human design as a whole is we experiment, right? And,
Yes.
and we see how it feels, and we see what resonates, and we go with that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
hi, Nancy.
hello. Yeah. So as we're, processing through, so let's say somebody invites you to go out to dinner, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're inviting you to go out to dinner, and you go, oh yeah, right? That sounds great.
Totally into that. Yes.
Yeah. Then you're good to go. The mind comes in and kind of goes, yeah, but you got to get ready for work tomorrow, and you have to do this thing at home, and you might not have really time for it. All right. What's going on here? Right? The mind is getting in the way of what your authority is saying yes to.
Mm-hmm.
But what ends up happening is that sacral center is like, we've referred to it before as like the Energizer Bunny, right? It can just keep going and going. It's generating its own energy. It's a really, really powerful center.
Yes.
Until
Ooh.
you stop listening and honoring its authority.
Ah. Okay.
Now, all of a sudden, the mind is telling you all these other things that you have to get done, and you go, oh, okay. Sorry, I can't come out to dinner. Right? So what's happening is you've just said no to what is going to bring you energy, light you up, and refill that sacral.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And instead, you're saying yes to possibly things that the sacral is saying no to. Right? Now, in this moment, you're like, okay, now we got to go do this thing. And your sacral's going, no,
Yes.
right? And you're forcing yourself to do it. And
Mm-hmm.
it is painful in that moment, right? Because you're
Yes.
draining that sacral battery. It's like taking a battery and plugging it into something that it doesn't belong in, and it just sucks the energy right out of that battery.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
And this is what we do when we don't honor this sacral response. Okay? And it's interesting, right? Like we talk about how these authorities build on each other. So let's say that somebody has a defined solar plexus and they have a defined sacral.
Oh, okay.
Now, the solar plexus, of course, takes trump because the solar plexus has to have its emotional wave. But once you get to that place of clarity, if you also have a defined sacral, you can ask it yes or no, and it's going to be very clear.
Okay.
If
Nice.
you've allowed yourself to ride that wave.
That's a key. Allowing yourself to ride the wave.
Right. So noticing that if you haven't ridden that wave yet, and you're like, oh, but I want, or we have to be really mindful of what our authorities are and how they play out in our system.
Yes.
Okay. Now, when we're looking at, okay, what is right for me, right? How often do we go, oh, I have to clean the house? And we go, oh, yeah, yay, I have to clean the house.
Never.
Unless you really like doing that, right? But
and then I have a house that needs cleaned too, if you like doing that.
Then there's that. But at the same time, like there are going to be things in our lives that we have to do just because they're going to be part of what we have to do.
Yes.
Right? Eventually we have to clean the dishes because we're going to want to eat off them again.
Yes.
They don't just keep on coming forever.
That's true.
Right? But this is different, right? We're talking about the big life decisions, right? We're not talking about, I mean, you can use it for what am I going to have for dinner tonight, right? Do you want to go out for sushi? Do you want to go out for pizza? Do you want to go out for Italian? okay, right? Like it's going to
Yeah.
be, and I love sushi, and so don't get me wrong, but it's just that, right? That part of, that sacral that's going to be able to give you that yes or no. But when we talk about authority, we really want to make sure that even if we're not necessarily honoring it with the little things, which still is very beneficial, we want to really be honoring it with the big things.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Getting into relationships, moving to different places, taking jobs, right? Like the big impactful events in our lives, it is very, very important that we're honoring our strategy and our authority.
Mm-hmm.
So here you have this, opportunity to apply for a job, and you think, oh, this is going to be great because it pays well, it has great benefits, and you ask yourself, is this job correct for me? And you get an
Yes.
right? What do we do with that? Right? And how many people let the mind go, yeah, but on paper, this is the perfect job.
Yes.
Right? And so they get into it and they do it,
Mm-hmm.
and they're exhausted. They have no energy. They feel like it's just the biggest chore to get to that job, to do that job, and to get home from that job.
Yes, and that's the time when you are in a position to where it's really rewarding, it charges you up, it gives you energy instead of draining. People who don't understand that look at you and go, "How the heck can you do that?" And the first thing out of your mouth is I love my job. I love what I do. And whereas other times, like you were just describing, if you're not synced up to it, it's like, yep, drudge, drudge, drudge.
Mm-hmm.
So Heather had a question. What about in the moment you find yourself kind of in a frozen, kind of down state?
Yeah. So this is interesting. From a strictly human design point of view, it's weight. From a mental health and everything else kind of point of view, it's, is there something else coming up for you that's getting in the way of you hearing your sacral authority?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So sometimes we get into a frozen state, or we get into I really don't know. I have no answer for this. And
Yes.
that's okay. That's a weight. And in and of itself, weight can also be an answer,
Mm. Yeah.
right?
Yes.
That being said, when we're dealing with trauma, when we're dealing with releasing, conditioning and all kinds of stuff that get in the way, oftentimes the mind will cause us to freeze, right? So we talk about the nervous system and nervous system response, right? You can get into polyvagal theory, all that kind of stuff, and we're looking at it and going, okay, am I frozen? And it's interesting you use the word frozen, and why I'm going into some of this other aspect, because
Mm-hmm.
that state, right? Fight, flight, freeze, fawn. If we're in one of those, we're probably not even hearing what our sacral has to say,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And we're probably not even recognizing what is there for us to respond to,
Mm-hmm.
let alone hearing what that response is,
Yes. Yes.
right? So, my question for that would be, what are you doing to make sure that you're regulating yourself, being able to move out of the mind to be able to really hear what that response is within you?
And that's a really important thing that you can always improve upon. You can develop that, even at my age. Shocking. And we can help children develop that too,
Mm.
so that it becomes part of how they operate and it's natural. It's part of
Mm-hmm.
the rhythm that they go to engage the world.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
it's interesting, right? Like I think about that with my oldest, who's now 16, who is a sacral authority. Or no, which one's the sacral? Hold on. Now I got to pull their charts up in my head. Emotional generator. I'm pretty sure the 16 is. So we've talked about, riding the emotional wave, not making any decisions until things come to clarity. And then in that moment, asking yourself again, is this correct? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've had opportunities where, there'll be an invite for something, and, getting to the place where now, Ray can look at it and go, okay, I don't have to actually answer this right now.
Yes.
And allow that space.
Yes.
And then, go, oh, I'm really excited about it. I really don't want to go. Oh, I think it's da da da. Oh, well, maybe da da da. Well, so and so is going to be there. And that wave.
Mm-hmm.
Wave.
Yes.
Right. And now it comes time for the decision. And if that wave hasn't been completed and a decision has to be made, oftentimes that is the decision. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But if that wave is complete, and then I say, Ray, do you want to go?
Yes.
It will be a yes or no. And it's pretty clear.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I use Ray as an example because I don't have either of them as authorities.
Nor do I. Yes. So, well, and this is Heather asked a follow-up question, and I'm not sure if we're going to be able to answer that, but what do you do in the moment if you have trouble asserting yourself, like when you are triggered?
That's really important too. So, and yeah, this is going to take us a little bit out of authorities, sort of. So, but it's still, we can keep it in human design terms. So we have tons of conditioning, right?
Yes.
That is impacting us all of the time.
Yes.
It's either conditioning from family, conditioning from generational stuff, conditioning from past life stuff. We've got all that. And then we've got all the transits and all the neutrinos and all the stuff that's coming at us all of the time. Okay. So there is a possibility on a regular basis that something is being triggered within us.
Sure.
Okay. And this is where, when we talk about our authority and we talk about what this looks like for us, why it is so important to get out of the mind and to really start to listen to the body.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because in that moment, you go, shit, I'm triggered, right? How am I going to deal with this? And we maybe freeze, or we fawn, right? Or maybe we fight,
Yeah.
right? But to be able to, in that moment, go, okay, my mind is telling me this story.
Mm-hmm.
I really can't go there right now.
Yes.
That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
What do I need in this moment?
Yes.
Okay. And depending on our authority, that might look a little bit different in how we even ask that question.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So with a spleen, with a solar plexus authority, it might be, I need space in this moment, right? Because I need to allow this to process through me, and I can't be assertive in the moment other than saying I need space, right? Because I have to process before I can come back with what I even feel about this situation, right? For the sacral authority, it might be, do I need to assert myself right now? No. Do I need to walk away? Yes. Or vice versa, right? And so being able to ask those yes or no questions are going to be really important on how you decide if you navigate it. Splenic authority, that's what I have, which we'll maybe get into this time, maybe get into next time, we'll see. But it's a survival authority. In this moment, am I safe?
Yes.
Right? If I'm safe, I can deal with my trigger, I can assert myself, I can speak my truth. If I'm not safe, it's get out of here.
Yes.
Right? And I will come back and deal with it when I'm safe. Right? And so, again, as we work our way through the authorities, there are different ways that we would address this. That being said, knowing that we're triggered is the best first step.
Yes. Yes. Well, and I think, and there was, let's see, Twisted Sushi said there's always time to wait and ask ourselves. But yes, pressure makes us forget. you're right. I like how you said the importance of, am I safe? If the answer is yes, then you can work on processing it. If it's not, if it's no, then get out of that situation. Get out of that situation. And Heather followed up with, that's my work right now, Jen and Gerald, finding these oracle portals for my voice. Good for you. There's a lot of power in knowing that that's what you want to work on and that's what you're working on. So I love that. And Ocean Garnet has joined us. Hello, Ocean.
Hello.
And Amilda also said, yes, I've done fright and flight with 2 jobs and regretted leaving one of them later.
Yeah.
And Beth shared, I feel as though early childhood trauma affects these things. The survival one is big for people who experience childhood trauma and safe. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, depending on your design and what you're open to, the way that you're influenced by others and all of that, there's certain energies that they say it's really important to get into your own energy. The reality is it's important for everybody to get into their own energy.
Yes.
Right? To take that space and to not feel what's coming at them from anybody else, and to be able to just sit in that and go, how am I doing right now?
Yeah.
What is going on for me?
Absolutely, because if I know what is mine and I am aware of what is yours, that's a world of difference. It really helps. And I want to give credit to Amilda, who said, that's what my therapist is working me through. Good for you. That's
wonderful.
hard work, and I'm glad you have a therapist who is helping you with that. So that's great. That's great. Wow. Thank you for the question, Heather. These thoughtful questions are important, and no, we can't answer all of them, but they can sort of help us go through this. So,
well, and remember too, like all of what we're talking about here is about experimenting and seeing what resonates and seeing what doesn't. And understanding too how much of our experience is guided by the pressure of others. Right? How much of who I even think I am is who I really am, and how much of it is what I've been conditioned to be, what expectation has been put upon me, of all of the different things that I've been conditioned to think I have to be or I have to show up as. Right? And so the idea behind human design, the gene keys, all of this is really being able to look at it and go, I actually have permission to be authentically me, and I don't have to show up for somebody else the way that they want me to.
Yes. That's powerful. It's very powerful.
Right.
Laura had asked, how do I get a real sky chart? What level and app do I need? What we're talking about is not real sky. You can look on my YouTube playlist for astrology or real sky. There's some information about people who can offer those. So check those out. And I also believe Real Sky Astrology YouTube channel has got information about that. So yeah.
Yeah. With the human design charts, human design was traditionally brought to us through tropical. So that is what is generally used. That being said, genetic matrix is one that will do the sidereal, the 13 sign sidereal, true sidereal, with both, and I never say these right, Kanatus,
I have no idea.
and Shamanic, I think. I'm not the astrologer side of things, but I do know that those options are there.
Yes.
And you can get your sky charts from a human design perspective on genetic matrix as well.
Yeah. I did put in Mastering the Zodiac is a website that you can get a very high level, and that is free. So I
Okay.
hope that helpums. Helpums. I hope it
Helpums.
helpums. Yeah.
Helpums. I like them. Helpums.
Mhm. And
That's
I do want to
fantastic.
say hello to Candy Soul and Soil. Hello, Candy. It's
Hello.
beautiful to see you. So
Mhm.
wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so the sacral authority. What
Yeah.
else with that?
So it's interesting too, right? Because we talk about how the mind jumps in and the mind tries to kind of take over. And I think that it's really important because we don't always trust these gut responses that we get,
Hmm.
right? But the sacral authority is, for those who have it, very reliable.
Yes.
It will always tell you the truth of how you're feeling, what your energy is doing, how it's going to impact you, all of that. And so really, allowing yourself space to experiment with it is going to help you to be able to reduce that resistance,
Hmm.
right?
Yes.
And so noticing, when you get the green light for something, you can know, okay, I am allowed to do this. Like, it is okay to do
Yes.
this,
Yes.
right?
Hmm.
But this is the other piece that's important is you might have the green light for something and you might be go, 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 and then you get a red light,
Ah. Hmm.
right? And it is important in that moment to honor your stop,
Yes.
right? And so checking in with ourselves and all can be a really powerful tool as well,
Hmm.
right? Throughout a process.
I hear that. I hear that a lot. That checking in with ourselves is such an important part of the human experience.
Mm-hmm.
I need to write that down because that is going to come up in several conversations. Um, so I can't write and talk at the same time. So
I can talk.
go for it.
That I can do. So, because we've gotten so out of listening to these responses, right? We have to kind of learn how to reawaken the sacral response. And it's really about learning to honor your need when you ask yourself yes or no questions, right? So, being able to really look at it and go, somebody says, do you want to come to dinner? That's a simple yes or no. Somebody says, what do you want to eat? There's no yes or no in that, right? Sorry, guys, the dogs.
No, no, no. It's okay. It's many of us have pets.
Well, the cat meow, the dogs go crazy. they
Yeah.
they have no problems honoring their yes or no response in that moment. Let me tell you, animals
Well
can teach
said.
us so much. Um, but yeah, so the more that we practice it, the more we can bring in that energy, and the more we can reawaken to what that response feels like within us, right?
Hmm.
So again, going back to that idea, if somebody says, "Well, what do you want for dinner?" It's okay to go, "I don't know. Why don't you give me some options?"
Yes. Yes. I've actually found that options is extremely helpful,
Mm-hmm.
especially in relationships where you have somebody who says, "Oh, I don't know," and you list some things off and it's no, 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 no. It's helpful to be aware of what is going on for me, what I need, so I can say, as you described, Jennifer, to say, "I don't know, what are some options?"
Mm-hmm.
Because instead of, don't, you give me this, "Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Give me these. Give me three options, and then I can choose."
Yeah. And for somebody whose strategy is to respond and their authority is yes or no,
Mhm.
responding with this unlimited amount of options, that what do you do with that?
Well, many of us get overwhelmed,
Mm-hmm.
and many of us shut down, or many of us, I'm speaking from my experience, it comes out sideways, it comes out messy, it
Mm-hmm.
comes out in not necessarily the way we intended it,
Yeah.
and never been, it's not a good option. So,
Yeah.
hmm,
Yeah. And the other part of this that's really beautiful is that the sacral energy, when this is your authority, it's always ready to respond. And it will respond to everything.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, really working on listening and honing in. And it's a lot easier to do that when it comes to little decisions, so that when the big decisions come, you
Yes.
can get out of your head. Right? We talk a lot in with clients and things. I talk a lot about practice.
Yes.
Right? And the importance of practice.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We have all of these tools and things for regulating the nervous system and for helping, navigate difficult situations. And the one thing that I always end up hearing is, oh yeah, I forgot. I forgot to use that tool, or I forgot to do the thing. Right? And why do we forget? Because we don't use it. We don't practice it.
Correct.
Right? And so even just something as simple as taking deep breaths, right? If you want to be able to do that when you need to do it, you have to practice doing it when you don't need to do it.
Say that again, because that's, I think, very important. Practice when you don't need,
Yeah. If you want to be able to use it, how did I don't even know. They said it. Let's do it again.
scroll back at
Replay. Just scroll.
one at 42 minutes in. But I think that's it's so true, because if we don't practice with the small things, how are we going to expect it to work on the big things?
Yeah.
So I have a funny little practice for drawing your attention to things like that. Oh, I forgot to practice. Most of us have some sort of an electronic device to where we can set a timer. Setting a timer, and it's, for 3 times a day, to where it's not necessarily going to be like during a live or something like that. But that chime goes off, and it is a reminder of me to check in with myself and to take a breath, to check in. There's Buddhist practice is also about being in the moment and paying attention. So, and again, this is, oh, here you go. For entertainment purposes only. Don't, blah, blah, blah. If that works for you, great. If it doesn't work for you, great. If you figure something else that works for you, kudos. That's the way it could be done.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. And again, right, all of this came through, and Ra was very clear. It's about an experiment. It's about trying it, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't, see what resonates, and to allow yourself an opportunity to just try it.
Yes. And the idea of also of being willing to fail, the gloriousness of the failure as an option to go, well, here you go. I know that didn't work.
Yeah.
So I think was it Thomas Edison said he didn't have what he had 99 ways to find another way to do it right, or something like that. Somebody's going to do it. You get it. It's just you get what I'm saying. You get what I'm not able to say. So, and I think that ability to, boy, I don't know about everybody else. I am really hard on myself. So if I can calm down and have a little bit of compassion for myself, it goes a long way.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And it's interesting, right? Because even that ability to have compassion for ourselves, the mind gets in the way.
Talk more about that, Jennifer.
Well, okay. So again, we'll bring it back to the human design perspective. So we look at all of these different things, and we're going to actually get to the ajna when we talk about mental projectors. But this is the equivalent for the mind, right? This is about how we process information, the way that the mind kind of categorizes stuff and everything. And we've gotten to a place where we've become so reliant on the mind for everything. But what's absolutely fascinating is, we talked about this a bit when we looked at the centers, but if I pull this up for you guys to look at, just to bring it kind closer there. So all of the different centers have different aspects to them. Okay, so we've got awareness centers, which is the spleen. We've got the ajna, and we've got the solar plexus, right? So these are types of awareness that we have within us. The solar plexus is the only one that kind of goes between them. So we've got motor centers. These are centers that produce some kind of energy. Now, of course, the sacral is the biggest motor center because it's, you know, the Energizer Bunny. But then the solar plexus is also a motor center, as is the heart center here, and the root center, which is not defined because it's not part of authorities. So now think about this. We've got two awareness centers, the solar plexus and the spleen, that are connected to motors. They're meant to move us to do something.
Yes.
Right? Here's the other awareness center. It is connected to our head, our inspiration, and our throat, our communication. There is no motor connection for that awareness center. And yet, how many of us operate based on what the mind tells us?
Yes, a lot of us who shouldn't be.
Everybody.
Yeah, I love it.
Because nobody will ever have their mind connected to their motor. It's just not going to happen.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, obviously, if it's all defined all the way through, there might be some channels that eventually connect, but right, that's not what it's for. Right? And so the more that we can recognize that, the more we can allow ourselves to really get out of what the mind keeps telling us.
Yes.
And allow ourselves to be in the present moment. Right?
Yes.
And it's interesting, and I love this. So Richard Rudd, in a different book than the one you showed, this is The Human Design, the Revelation. This is his kind of interpretation and his own kind of version of the definitive book, with very different in its own way. But what he talks about is, and I love this, is the mind is a time machine. Okay, now this is super cool because what he explains is that there's 3 different ways that the mind processes.
Okay.
So we've got the abstract collective, and this is what this process talks about, our relationship with the present from the perspective of the past. So we're constantly bringing ourselves into that past. Then we've got the logical, which is the mind in the present bringing us to the future. What do we have to do? How do we have to figure it out? All of that. Those are both collective energies, right? So think about that. That's where our conditioning is. That's where we get tapped into all of the shoulds that we constantly have to face.
Yes.
Right? And it's always coming from all the stuff that we were conditioned with in the past and all the things we think we have to do or should be doing for the future. The only individual process is in the pause, the now, the present. Right? And that's only one little part of what the mind does. Right? And so if we recognize that the mind is being influenced by all of these different things, then we can really take that step out and go, only right here in the now, when I tap into my authority, when I recognize what the body is telling me, can the mind process the now. Until then, the mind is never present.
We are very complex, aren't we? Which makes us fascinating, actually.
It's absolutely fascinating, but we are our own worst enemy on a regular basis.
Yeah, Imelda said that. Also, she said, the fear of failure has always gotten in my way. Last night, I spoke with my 20-year-old and told him there was no such thing as failure. You try it, it works. Or you try it works. You try it doesn't. You try again. Lessons. Yes. And Heather is sharing, a yoga teacher told me it's a practice, not a perfect.
Yes, I love that.
I like that too. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Yes, the mind is the most powerful prison.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, it really, really is. And so as we go through, these different authorities and we talk about what that looks like, and we talk about really connecting with ourselves again on a deeper level, it's all about being able to, if we can't quiet the mind, at least go, not right now.
Yes. Yes.
Right? And giving ourselves permission to exit that prison.
Hmm. Well, and this is one of those things is, and I've said this before, and I will say it multiple times. This is part of the tools that are available for us to
Mhm.
understand what we're going through.
Yeah.
You can and cannot use them as you wish. Sometimes they will work for you, and sometimes they won't. So, and again, some of this stuff is complicated. That's where professional assistance is extremely important, especially
Mhm.
if you're um, pulling from generational things. Really, really powerful. Very powerful. So,
Yeah.
um, wow. Okay, so we're at 52 minutes. We should probably not try to fit in another one.
No.
So,
No. But I mean,
um,
as it is, when we really talk about like where we're at, right? Let's say seven, like 75% of the population has been covered in these two.
mhm. And if you have been covered in these two, give us a thumbs up, hands up, something like that. Uh, I have not been covered in these two.
No, neither have I.
Because I am up here. So,
Hmm.
so, but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Well, and just about your chart that you held up, right? Because there's a lot of undefined centers going on there, right? And so part of it too is that the mind, whether it's defined or undefined, that ajna piece is always trying to figure out what it thinks about something, right? So a
Hmm.
defined ajna just means that you have a consistent way of doing that, and an undefined means you have an inconsistent way of doing that. We all do it, right?
True.
And what
Yes.
ends up happening is we're filtering a lot of what's going on for us through all of our undefined centers, because that's where a lot of the conditioning is happening, right?
Hmm.
Because we're open, we're experiencing things differently in each environment that we find ourselves in. And so the more that we can recognize that, the more we can even tap into the authority that's there for us. So, like when we were talking about that fight or flight kind of freeze, whatever you're in response, right? Another part of that is what is going on for me in the environment that I'm in,
Okay.
right? And do I need to change my environment? Right? And again, this comes back to maybe that safety piece, but also what energies are impacting me in this environment,
Hmm.
right? That are causing me to not be able to have or tap into that clarity,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yeah, Emil does. Like, I need to rewind later to get the name of the book for my son and for myself. Well, I can tell you the name of the book is The Definitive Book of Human Design.
Mm-hmm.
And again, purchase responsibly, know your limits, here to share, not to sell. And
Yeah,
it's by uh, Linda Bonnell.
yeah, and raw.
So, so there's that. And Beth is like, and I'm going to have to get the book. It's um, it's not an inexpensive book.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll say that. I don't know if your library would have it. Maybe, maybe not.
Maybe.
You could always ask what's the worst thing they do is buy it for you, get it through interlibrary loan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
lots of options for being able to access it in other ways, if.
Well, and there's some decent stuff online.
Mm-hmm.
And like many of you who are watching, I have to chew on this stuff slowly.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh look, Madame Marie is on it. Boom. There's the link.
Amazing.
There it
Amazing.
is. So,
Yeah.
um,
Well, and that's it. And like Imelda said, it's worth the peace of mind, right? So
mhm.
if reading it and processing through it in that way is something that would be beneficial for you and you feel would resonate more for you, then maybe it's worth, being able to allow yourself that time to digest it in a way that is correct for you.
Yeah. And yeah, it's worth a peace of mind. It's worth having something to help you understand.
Mm-hmm.
So, Fatima, good to see you. And Heather is
Hello.
saying super loving this time with you all. Thank
Oh,
you.
thanks, Heather. So
I
good
I
you guys are
appreciate it.
all here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's a really interesting thing too, because as we learn through, go through all of this, even if these aren't your authorities, or even if these are, and we're going to go into ones that aren't, it's a really amazing thing to be able to understand a bit about each of them and how they operate.
Hmm.
Because then as you get to know people, you might have somebody who, says, I just need to talk this out. I don't need you to respond.
Yep.
I just need you to hear and let me just express all of this. I just need to hear myself say it. Is that
Yes.
okay? Right.
Mhm.
Gerald's authority.
Yes. You're describing me. I'm an out loud processor. Just sit there and let me say it out loud and not into the void.
Right. And so to be that sounding board and being willing to be that sounding board for somebody that you care about so that they have the opportunity to just voice it. And when they voice it, they don't need your feedback, they don't need your advice. They just need to hear themselves voicing it so that
Yep.
they know how they feel in their body as they express it.
Yes.
Right. And so it's such a beautiful thing to be able to just allow somebody that if that's what they need.
Yes.
Right? To
Yes.
know that the solar plexus does not have any knowledge in the now about what to do. It
Mhm.
needs time to be able to go, hey, I'm gonna, ask you about this. Take your time. It's okay. Don't
Yes.
give me a response right now. Even if
Mhm.
the person goes, yeah, but no, just
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 wait.
sleep on
Yep.
it
Yep.
and let me know, later.
Yeah.
Right. And to be able to really honor that for another person
Hmm.
is also an incredibly beautiful opportunity.
Yes, and it helps that human connection because when we
Mm-hmm.
understand what we need, we can let people know. I just need you to think out loud. You let me think out loud. Don't answer it. I'm not a problem to be solved. I just need to say it out loud.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can go, okay, I recognize this is what this person needs. And you
Mm-hmm.
can be there, and that person will feel very seen. They will feel heard. They will feel valued. And it's
Mm-hmm.
so impactful. So impactful. And, Kaylee said, I'm the same, Gerald. I need to say it out loud and have it bounce back. Thankfully, I have friends that understand. And those
Mm-hmm.
are great friends.
Yeah.
Those are great friends. So, wow. Jennifer, what do you have coming up?
I have Twillo Talk at 5 with Tanis. And I think we're going to be talking about this wonderful eclipse that we just had and the energy that comes with that. And I'll tell you a
Yes.
bit about the transits and what's going on there.
Hmm.
And yeah, and then we just have authentic conversation. So if we even have time to pull a card, we will. Either that or we end up pulling it at the end and it still ends up matching up with what we've talked about, which is a
I
beautiful
love that.
thing. Yeah, and then just some recording for Therapist in Conversation later this week that will be released at the beginning of next month.
That's actually a really, really insightful show.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that. I really like that show.
Oh, thanks. It's a
So,
lot of fun to be a part of it. And
yeah.
so.
And I hear you, Kaylee. I was standing in the aisle at Michael's talking to myself. My friend teased she just stand there so I don't look like I was talking to myself. Arguing with myself about purchasing knitting needles responsibly.
Fantastic.
Yep. Yep. A lot of times I'm doing, I'm sitting there staring at something, and that's the whole conversation going on in my head, and I'm not moving.
Mm-hmm.
So, but um this has been wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so
So,
much for having me on. And we
and we
still
do
have
what?
quite a
How
few
many?
authorities to go.
And we have quite a few of these scheduled
Mm-hmm.
to go on. So this is one of those things. This is a building up, and you can start anywhere that you want. You can watch the playback multiple times. It's okay. Get the book, don't get the book. It's all good. It's all very good.
Yeah.
So, um, I thank you very much for it's great to be able to. Yeah. By the way, I found out that someone like Jennifer likes the invitation to share information. So she keeps saying yes when I ask her, "Hey, you want to do something? You want to do this?" So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's wonderful. Yes, Projector's invitation is amazing, as you know, and also my definition is pretty much right. So I need it pulled out of me. So questions from you guys and all just bring so much more to the table.
absolutely,
So I love that.
absolutely. Yes. So we will say adios. We will see you the next time. Thank you. Gerald, I'm also a projector hint. Oh, there you go. Yes, yes, yes. So this has been Laugh and Learn Human Design Authorities Part 2. We're going to have a Part 3, 4, 5, maybe a 6, something like that. And that's okay.
Mhm.
So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jennifer. And it's been lovely to share time with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I always absolutely love being here with all of you. So thank you.
All right, everybody, take care. Bye.